I recently just got into real estate investing, and I'm not gonna lie, it's been one of the most overrated experiences ever.
Rental properties don't cash flow. I don't care what anybody else has to say.
2023, I quit the long-term rental business forever, and I am never going back.
The real estate gurus are finally admitting that owning a bunch of real estate properties is not passive and not really worth it. That is what we're going to talk about today. Welcome back to Step by Step. I have not made a podcast or really commentary style video episode in a while, but I'm back for a few episodes that I wanted to talk about because I found this really interesting. Since the 90s, Rich Dad Poor Dad made owning rental properties the dream of how you build wealth in America. But as time has gone on, it's become less and less worth it. And though people for years have kind of made it work on social media, sold courses on it, what we found now is that even the successful people, the people who found the best deals, even they're getting out. Or even they're at least saying that it's not really worth it and they wouldn't do it again today.
Coming into investing, do you think they should buy real estate or?
There's a lot of reasons why this is. And the thing that got me the most interested in talking about this was Graham Stephan selling his rental properties in Los Angeles. So Graham Stephan, a lot of people know he's a personal finance YouTuber who got his start in a lot of ways talking about how he did real estate investing, and he made it seem really approachable. Like, he bought these rental properties in LA, they cash flowed, and it seemed like something that you could do too. He was able to get great deals on these properties because he was a real estate agent in LA, so he would see the best deals. He could represent himself in it, so he could probably get a little bit of a slightly lower price, not having to pay the buyer's agent commission, right? At least the seller wouldn't have to pay the buyer's agent commission. So he accumulated a bunch of rental properties, some that he lived in, some that he just bought and immediately rented out, and they cash flowed. They did well. Most of us have kind of followed that journey of his, and I think he always kind of said he would hold on to them forever. So when I saw that he was even selling them, I was like, whoa, what's going on? So today, it's quite obvious that buying a brand new property to rent out really isn't worth it the way it used to be. Just with the way prices and interest rates are, you're not going to find somebody who's going to cover the mortgage. You're going to be losing money every month. Now, what I find really interesting though is the fact that the people who did it completely right, who got a good purchase price, they bought 10 plus years ago, they locked in a low interest rate that we will likely never see again. They're cash flowing even those people are saying it's not worth it, I'm getting out. If it's not worth it for them, and if people are finally being honest about that, probably not worth it to you either at today's interest rates and prices. Now, before we really get into this episode, I want to thank the sponsor, which is Pesty. Pesty is a DIY pest control system that I am now using on my balcony because I have 2 dogs. I leave the balcony door open so they can go out there, but I was starting to get spiders come in my apartment. No matter how much I would clean off the area, sometimes, they find their way and they really freak me out. Now with Pesty, you're able to keep away over 100 different types of pests, including spiders. It's really easy. It takes about 10 minutes to do the application. It has a little sprayer and a nozzle, and you just spray it yourself. It's pet friendly, which is important to me. It's also kid friendly. It comes with a pro-grade pesticide that's fully registered. They actually use this in a lot of hospitals and schools across the country. And if you want to get 10% off, you can use my code. I'll have the QR code on the screen, or I'll have it linked down below. With that, you can get an extra 10% off your first order, and they have a 100% bug-free guarantee or your money back. So I just am loving the peace of mind of not having little bugs get in my apartment because they just, otherwise we're finding a way somehow. All right, now let's get back into it. Why real estate investing is not worth it. So the first thing that I think we need to address is the myth of cash flow. So this is something that a lot of real estate investors back in the day would tout and would really use to sell the dream, was that you can make cash flow with a rental property. Not only are they paying down your mortgage, but you're making a few $100s on top of it. That's amazing, right?
But in reality, the truth couldn't be further from that.
Well, wrong, because guess what? All of it goes to maintenance. Back then, I think some of the newer real estate investors just didn't realize it yet because it takes some time for the maintenance expenses to hit you. I didn't notice it with my rental property in the first year, but then you really start to go, oh, $7,000 repair for whatever, there goes all the cash flow. Now all the real estate gurus are saying, yeah, real estate investing, long-term rentals, they're not a cash flow play. Cash flow is a myth. It really doesn't exist because because all of that cash flow, it just goes to repairs of things. And that's the reality of it.
So cash flow and rentals is a myth.
Today it is. The average home in Vegas is like $500,000. And what does it rent for? $3,000?
Yeah.
You know, what your mortgage?
It's like 35.
It's like 3,500. That's not even repairs, property management.
Yeah.
You will literally lose $1,000 a month on a normal home. And even if you got it at a great deal, you got it at $450,
Yeah.
$420. Your mortgage is still it's $2,500 and it rents for $2,500, but you still have all those other expenses.
Yeah.
The other kind of harsh reality is like you have to cash flow just to break even. If you're someone who's like new to looking into real estate investing and you're like, hey, I think this might cover the mortgage. I could rent this out for about what the mortgage is, maybe make an extra $100. No, you're actually losing money if you're just breaking even because you will have repairs. At some point, you'll probably have a vacancy as well. But really the thing is the repairs. We've had to repair our water heater in Palm Springs, the whole HVAC unit. That's like $10,000, $15,000. I forget exactly how much. There's little things like, oh, something was leaking. When people move out, generally it's going to need to be repainted, deep cleaned. Some of these things might be taken out of the security deposit, but general wear and tear, you can't take that out of a security deposit. That is something that you're kind of factoring in.
All of mine are paid for, and some of them with repairs and vacancies don't hardly make money.
So my sister and I own a townhouse in Seattle that we long-term rent out. We didn't really intend to become landlords. She just wanted to live in it. I went in on it with her. She ended up moving and now we've rented it out because we don't know exactly what to do with it. We didn't necessarily want to sell it. Because we didn't intend on becoming landlords, we weren't really looking at the whole cash flow side of things. In the first year that we rented it out, it didn't cash flow at all. 6 years into owning it, well, really, I think this is the 7th year of owning that house. Now it does cash flow a little bit. Just the market rate is about like $250 more than what the mortgage is that we pay. But all of that goes to repairs, all of it, always, every year. Like there's always something. And if it doesn't yet this year, like if there's a little bit in that account, it will soon. Like there will be something big that breaks. Eventually the roof will need to be redone, things like that. So it all just goes to repairs, and people have kind of like, stopped pretending like that's not a factor. I feel like this was something that people just didn't mention because they were maybe selling a course on real estate investing, or they were like making money off of people thinking that this was a good idea and romanticizing it kind of. But now people are being a little more real about it, which I appreciate. I think it's always good to know all the factors when you're looking into an investment. And all of these home repairs have gotten significantly more expensive, while rents haven't gone up that much. The cost to repair your house has outpaced inflation. And so these landlords are getting kind of squeezed. I know no one feels bad for them, but that's also a factor. Number 2 is that it's not passive. People always call it passive income. It is annoying to own a rental property, okay? It's not a 9 to 5. It's not like a 40-hour-a-week job, but it is not purely passive the way that owning a stock is, okay? Like you're still going to have times that you have to deal with it, and it's always at the most annoying, inopportune times. I think the people who really are getting out of their rental properties the most are the ones that live far away from them. So Graham Stephan, he doesn't live in LA anymore, so it is more difficult to manage those properties. I saw another YouTuber, his name is Bia Heza. He's selling a rental property he has in Texas.
These last 5 years of ownership were actually not a great experience. There's a few things that happened here that I didn't know were a thing. I live in California, but the property I've been dealing with is almost 2,000 miles away in Plano, Texas.
It's just another thing to think about. He was talking about how there was a storm coming to Dallas area, and now he had to think about that and stress about that, and it was like a whole annoying thing because he doesn't even live there. Again, it's really not terribly time consuming, but it's not nothing. It's not fully passive. Again, it's really not that bad. It's just the fact that it's been sold to people as this passive thing when it's really not that passive. And there is a true passive option that is so much easier and gets you the same return or better. You're going to have to coordinate with vendors to get stuff fixed. If you have a vacancy, that is when it's going to be the most time consuming to deal with. Just, communicating with the tenants. If you have another full-time job, this is something that's going to be taking time away from you. It's going to be urgent when it comes up. When you have something in a rental property that is an issue, most of the time, you kind of got to drop everything and deal with it. And so it can be quite distracting to whatever you're trying to do in your life. Sure, you can hire a property manager to deal with these things, but even when you you have a property manager, you're still going to have to make some decisions. Like, you're going to have to decide if you're spending the money on whatever, which brand. The property manager can coordinate it, make it a little easier. But at the end of the day, you're going to still have to communicate with the property manager. It still might ruin your afternoon sometimes, seeing you have to do a big repair. And it's just something that, like, you simply don't have to deal with other types of investments, like stocks, for example. The second side of it being annoying is that it actually complicates your finances. And this is something I don't hear many people talking about, is when it comes time to do taxes, pretty annoying. And it is also probably another expense or time that you're gonna have to spend on it. If you have a rental property, a lot of people put that in an LLC. That LLC now needs to file with the state and you have to pay a fee each year. In California, it's $800. In other states, it's not too bad. And then if you have a lot of expenses with your rental property, you know, if you're doing things properly, you're gonna have taxes done for that LLC, which you're gonna have to A, pay someone to do, or B, spend time doing yourself, which again is annoying. And so these people who have like 10 to 20 rental properties, that sucks when it comes time to do your taxes, because how annoying. I mean, if you have a good tax person, I'm sure they're on it and they're passive for you, like potentially. But at the end of the day, I find there's always something I need to log in and send, and receipts, and keep records of things. And just in general, it's not a simple way of living. It does complicate things and can cause just more stress and be more annoying than, again, I'm always comparing this to the stock market. Like, you don't have to open an LLC to invest in stocks. Like, you can just do it, and it really doesn't affect your taxes until you sell, except for dividends, right? But like that, you just get a little document at the end of the year. It's really not that difficult to deal with, not like having a whole LLC, essentially a whole other business. So it's annoying on the side of communicating with your tenants and repairs, but also the complicating of your finances in general. The older I get, the more I value things just being simple, and like, I don't want to have a million different accounts for things. And if you have rental properties, that kind of comes with the territory. Something to keep in mind too, I can see how after a while, if you're not finding the returns to be worth it, you go, why don't I just simplify? Why don't I just stop with all this? The third big factor is just that the returns are not that good. Like, most of the time with a rental property, you're getting some appreciation, right? You may get some cash flow that's wiped out with the repairs, but the appreciation at the end of the day, in like 20, 30 years, a lot of the time, it's not really outpacing the stock market unless something really crazy happened, you know, unless there was like in the 80s, home prices doubled at one point. My parents had a house that pretty much doubled in value, or during COVID, but that's really not typical. For the most part, home prices are going up like 2 to 4% a year, depending on the market, sometimes more, sometimes less. It's a lot of hassle for like about the same return. I would think if you are dealing with this hassle and this risk also, which we'll talk about, you would be expecting better returns in the stock market, like a lot better of returns, 20% or more. That is not what most people are getting that own rental properties, like long-term rentals. It's just like not worth it. And you may think, well, one day the property is going to be paid off and then you're still getting the rent for it. Almost every time, if you compare, if you had just put that down payment in the stock market, you would still make more. You would make more off of the larger lump sum you have in the market than you would like that yearly, 8 to 10% you're getting from that larger lump sum than what you're getting in rent from that rental property.
This house behind me was purchased for $300,000 in 1988 and is now for sale again for $1.75 million in 2024. So it's pretty crazy that that home has appreciated over 400%. But what's even crazier is how much that same amount of money would have made in the stock market.
That same amount in an index fund tracking the overall market would now be $14 million. So this, I think, is interesting because that $14 million, if it was just invested getting a 10% return, let's say, that's $1.4 million per year. But that house could not even make $100,000 a year rented out. So yes, you have a paid off house at the end of it, but it wouldn't rent for as much too. And just in general, it just doesn't seem that the return is worth the hassle. Like, just the fact that it's about the same in the best case scenario most of the time is like, okay, that is not worth it. I'll even see these multifamily buildings that are for sale and they'll be like, oh yeah, you get about like a 5% yearly return. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna get 10% in the stock market. So why would I do that? Why would I take on the risk, deal with the hassle for less than what you'd probably get in the stock market? It just seems dumb. The fourth thing is the risk. it is a lot of risk to buy a rental property. You're risking like in so many different ways, honestly. Like home values could go down. They sometimes do. You know, the big crash in 2008. Could it happen again? In certain markets, maybe. I don't really think so. Probably not. But I guess you never know. Like truly, because a lot of people didn't predict that either. And it happened. In certain markets, like Houston, for example, places where there's a lot of land and they're very friendly to building, home prices just aren't appreciating that much. Even the appreciation staying flat, that's really not great. Like in the example of the YouTuber Bia Heza, I believe he said, you know, his appreciated enough because it was during that COVID time, but then after that it was kind of flat and he was worried about home building happening nearby. Absolutely, that's going to affect appreciation. Somewhere like LA, less of a risk because it's just harder to build here. There's not really land to do so. But in those places that have a lot of land, like Austin, Dallas, I don't know, Oklahoma, like yeah, the appreciation may not even be that great. That's a risk too. Could go down, or you could risk it being flat. You really can't bank on it always appreciating. Then there's the fact that you could get sued. I mean, freak accidents happen or someone trips and they could sue you. And you can have insurance for these things, but still, what a headache to deal with. And what a thing to like have to think about when you're going to sleep at night. Definitely not something that you're thinking about with money in the stock market. It's not gonna sue you. At least I've never heard of that happening. Oh, and you could have a squatter in your property. That's another risk in certain markets. I mean, I've thought about this with Palm Springs. I'm like, what if I rent it to someone for a month and they don't leave? What if, you know, you're stuck paying your mortgage still, and a lot of times those squatters are not treating the house super nicely. So yeah, it's probably not super likely to happen, but the fact that there's like a few different things you're risking here, having that mortgage, what if there's another COVID? And another reason I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about, but is very much a real one, is that real estate also has a high cost to transact. I'm a real estate agent in LA, by the way, you guys. So I know this well. I see the numbers of this. Like I have a listing and like you see the numbers that people are paying. It's not cheap to transact in real estate. With stocks, it's essentially free. Like you just trade it on the little app. When you go to sell a house though, a lot of times people are paying 5 to 6% of the sale price. That's a hefty fee. Sure, there are times where they're not paying maybe the buyer's agent as much, or, you know, if you're really savvy with these things, or you could list it yourself technically, you know, and save on those fees. But in reality, this is what's happening most of the time. At least that I'm seeing. Most people are hiring an agent because it is a time-consuming thing and something you need expertise on, I think. Otherwise, you might not get a good price. I don't know. Some people do it, or you could use discount brokerage. But even if you're using a discount brokerage that's going to list your house for 1%, most of the time the buyer's agent is still requesting the seller to pay 2.5%. I've actually never seen a seller not pay some of it, at least. I've never seen it. I'm working on real estate teams where we're talking about every deal, like not just my deals, but I've never even seen it of other agents that I've talked to. That's a whole other conversation, I guess, talking about how commissions work that you probably don't care about. But what you need to know is most of the time in reality, people are paying like 5-ish% when they're selling, and that's a high amount to pay that you don't have to when you have your money in the stock market. And even when you're buying, there are all these fees, you know, loan origination fee, bam, 0.5 to 1%. If you're getting a $500,000 loan, that's like $5,000. Escrow fees, that can be a few thousand. Transfer taxes, things like that. Sometimes the seller pays certain things, the buyer will pay certain things, depending on where you live. But in general, just know there are more fees, many, many, many more than you have when you're dealing with stocks. And that's not even getting into the cost of staging and really properly prepping your home, which people can pay, you know, sometimes tens of thousands for. But that is going to get them a better price, but you're still paying it. That you don't have to prep a stock. I sound like I'm trying to sell people on buying stocks. No, I really don't care. I don't care. Invest your money however you want. I'm not trying to sell you anything here. Like nothing to do with stocks or anything. I just find it interesting because I think for so long, real estate investing was romanticized. It's kind of refreshing to see people be like, actually, never mind. One of the reasons that real estate investing is, you know, less worth it is because it's so popular. There's a lot more demand just in general for houses because everybody kind of wants to own a rental property. Back when the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy wrote that book, that was not the default thing to do. Not many people knew to do that unless their family was in real estate. So there were more deals out there. But today, everybody knows real estate investing is a thing. Everybody's looking for those deals. And so the deals, there aren't really many. And if there is some, there's a guy cold calling to find it. Okay. Like you're not going to find it on Zillow or Redfin. Real estate investing, it's less worth it because everybody's in on it. If it was something that not that many people did, there would be more deals to be found. But this all is kind of a good thing. I think that people are having this realization because it was never sustainable. There were a lot of real estate gurus making videos about how you too can own 10 or 100 rental properties. There aren't enough houses for everyone to do that. And all that does really is drive up the price of housing for the people who actually want to live in the house. If there's less people vying for these rental properties, like less people care to own multiple properties, then the properties are going to be more affordable for the people that actually want to live in them. Graham Stephan selling his 7 or 10 properties or whatever, that's an opportunity for, each person who buys it to have a house that they own that they live in, which I think is just like a better allocation of housing. The realization that real estate investing is not all it's cracked up to be is actually good for you and I and the average person who just wants to own a home that they live in. It is better, when there's more people trying to be real estate investors, the prices just go up. So this all really is a good thing. And honestly, major props to all these real estate investors and gurus for being real about it, because you can make money selling a dream and you don't really make money exposing the truth that often, I've found. That's kind of what my YouTube channel has always been about. And it's like, yeah, I can do brand deals, but these people who sell courses on something, they make crazy money. Exposing it, that it's not really the dream that you think it is. It's not really gonna make you money, but it gets my respect because it's the reality, and I think it's important to share what's actually going on. But I'm not necessarily saying that buying a house isn't worth it in general, but buying a house for the purpose of making money is absolutely not worth it when you consider the annoyances, the hassle, the risk that you take on, and the reward, the returns not being really that much better than the stock market even, or better at all. A lot of times worse, about the same. For all the effort that you put in. Most people are going to be better off just investing in index funds or something. This is not financial advice, but this is just kind of generally what I do, I guess. Staying in your lane and focusing on the thing that you're good at and making you money, and then investing in the things that are truly passive. Buying a house that you live in is totally fine because the goal is probably not to make the highest return. It's to have a home that you can make your own and customize, do whatever you want to, knock out a wall if you want, stay in an area and build roots, not risk the landlord kicking you out. There definitely is a case to be made for renting being more worth it than buying even your primary residence these days. But I see people who still want to buy a primary residence. I still do eventually at some point want to buy the house I live in so that I can customize it. And there's a different psychological effect with your primary residence, locking in a lower payment, not having rent raised on you. That, yeah, sure, you could probably rent for a little bit cheaper, but for a lot of people, it's kind of worth it for those psychological benefits. And they're not as concerned about the return. It's the real estate investing, the buying houses just to rent out, that's it's just not really that worth it anymore, I don't think. And that's why we see multifamily, everyone says it's crashing in LA because people are waking up to this and they don't really want to be left holding the bag. I think one last thing to address is the places where you can still kind of cash flow more. Even those places aren't worth it. Take, for example, this real estate investor, her Instagram is called Lattes and Leases, and she built her following. I actually had her on this podcast because she opened a hotel in Palm Springs with a group of investors, but she built her following by buying these cheap houses in the Midwest that did cash flow. And from what I've heard, you can still cash flow in the Midwest, but they just don't really appreciate. But fast forward 5 years later, and she's selling all of them because it turns out the repairs on these old houses are a lot and the cash flow is not worth it again, and it's a hassle. She shares here some of the issues they've had. They've had like a toilet leak through a unit above, a bunch of things, and then the cash flow on one of them was only $50 a month, which is really not enough to cover the typical repairs you're gonna have on a rental property. So just like a lot of people are finding, her number one reason is the repair costs were eating into any profit. So she's selling a bunch of them because it's just not worth the hassle. It's not worth making a little bit every month because the appreciation, I've heard, is not great with these Midwest properties. They're cheap houses, and the biggest thing, the way people make the most money in real estate, the appreciation wasn't really even there. They probably appreciated a little bit, but was it worth it? Was it worth all the hassle? For her, probably, because it built her this huge following. But for the average person who's not like doing social media about it, probably not. That's the thing with real estate investing, is like a lot of times we see the beginning, like the exciting part and like the cash flow, but we need to see the 10 years later, and we need to see all the expenses. I want to see the tax returns. I want to see if it was worth it. And not everybody online shares that. A lot of people online only share revenue. They don't share expenses. And that's why you have to kind of be careful about who you follow and like take advice from, because a lot of people aren't like sharing everything. They're omitting stuff to look more successful than they actually are, or they just don't have the final results yet. Like if you're following somebody who just bought a rental property, we really don't know if it's worth it until like 5 years later at a minimum. So that's what I've noticed as far as real estate investing. It's something that I've been following for a while and I've always found interesting, and just am like, oh, I love seeing people like just be more real about it. I find it fascinating, and I hope that this video is helpful to you. If you're someone that's like looking into investing, it's like, look at people who share expenses too and share all the numbers, you know? So thank you guys for watching. If you want to check out Pesty, I will have that link down below, and I will see you guys in my next video.